Start. Originally it was King of the Jungle, and it was hard to get anybody to work on it, believe it or not. It seems so logical now that, of course, Lion King would be a big hit, but it wasn't. It was really all about kind of this dusty National Geographic nature movie. And I think is that what you recall, like when you first worked on it?
Yeah, when I went on the audition, it was King of the Jungle, and then I got a call back a year later, and it was called The Lion King, and I was like, call back? I don't remember. Lion King. And then I still, I was just like, okay, another job. And then I went on set, and I was like, oh, yeah, I'm here for Lion King. And everyone's like, oh, park here. And I was like, what's going on? And then I went in the studio. James Earl Jones was leaving his session when I was coming to mine, but I didn't want to be late, so I wanted to talk to him, but I had to go and be on time. And then when I saw the premiere, I was like, oh, hey.
That's what we were up to.
It's a big deal.
It was fun. We moved slow in animation. It took probably 4 years by the time we started the movie to finish it. And it's a problem because, not so much with you, but with Jonathan Taylor Thomas, his voice would change.
Oh, yeah.
So he's kind of this little kid, Mufasa, by the end he's going, hey, Mufasa. So I had to pitch him a little bit. But we always had trouble getting people to work on the movie because the pitch was, we would sit down with the animators and say, it's kind of like Moses meets Joseph, and then there's Hamlet in Africa with music by Elton John. And everybody would just say, well, good luck with that, and back out of the room. So it was a challenge, but what happened is the people we got to work on the movie were really enthusiastic about it. We all loved movies like Jungle Book, where there were allegories, where you could use animals to tell human stories. And that's really what this was. And certainly our directors, Rob Minkoff, Roger Allers, really got what this movie was. And it was a risk. At the time, we were making Broadway kind of fairy tale movies, Beauty and the Beast and Mermaid, which are wonderful movies. But to step out of that and make an all-animal movie with no sign of humans anywhere was really a challenge.
It was also the first time in a long time that a parent died. I don't think the parents died since, like, Bambi.
Yeah, that's true.
Really sad.
We love to kill off parents. Because they're all dysfunctional families.
Usually you kill the moms, though. At least that time you killed the dad.
Yeah, we left mom alone during this one. Yeah, it's funny. We always people ask us about that, and it's you have 80 minutes to tell a story, and killing off a parent, which we don't plan on doing when we start these movies. But these movies are about growing up, and a lot of times when you take a parent out of the picture, it forces that character into a situation where they have to grow up, probably artificially sooner than they would have, and that's really Lion King as well. It's this, Mufasa's betrayed by his brother and gives the ultimate sacrifice for Simba, and now Simba's not only alone, but he's framed for the murder. And if you would have told me then that a movie about a lion cub that gets framed for murder would be this huge hit, I would just say no, it's impossible. Because what did you think before it came out? Did you think it was going to be successful?
I really had no idea to the premiere. I thought it was maybe like Rescues Down Under, like DVD. I didn't know what I was in until the premiere. I was like, oh, okay. I'm like in the history of Disney.
Yeah, well, you don't know.
Kind of cool.
You try your best, you try to make a movie that's interesting and entertaining, but you really don't know.
Were you nervous?
Uh-huh.
Like premiere time? Like
I'm nervous right now, actually.
About the 3D, how people are going to
Yeah. No, you're nervous. I think when we showed the movie for the first time, I remember showing it in the San Fernando Valley. We did a premiere before the movie was released, and we brought in a bunch of, like, a regular movie-going audience. Not kids, but just date night people with tattoos and stuff. And they came in and watched the movie, and they were like laughing at all the jokes and crying at the right parts and stuff. We thought, wow, maybe people will really respond to this. We tested the movie 11 times to audiences, which was insane, but we showed it and adjusted it, and showed it and adjusted it, and really did a lot of workshopping to try to make it as good as we could. And then when it finally came out, we thought, wow, this is, people seem to be really responding to it, and you really never know. It was a great privilege, actually, that people like the movie and still do.
Well, a lot of the jokes are kind of adult. Like, I felt more adults laughing than the kids, but you guys do that all the time.
Yeah.
Reach a little bit of everybody.
Well, they can play on a number of levels. They can, if you're 6 years old, 8 years old, you can go in and watch this movie and appreciate it just for its fun and color and joy. Right. And I've had some of the most profound things people have said about the movie is, I had somebody come up once and said, I reconnected with my father because of this movie. Like they were estranged from their dad, and they went and called him up because that's what the movie's about. And that was really moving, because that's certainly not what you think of while you're making it. You're trying to make it fun and entertaining. But those kinds of things are just unbelievable when people say those things.
Yeah, it was fun.
We don't have to yak the whole time. We'd love to get questions from you guys, or personal stories or jokes or anything that you may have. So while we're talking, please weigh in or let us know what's on your mind. We'd be happy to talk about pretty much anything.
I have a question. Talking about the success of The Lion King, and now we're bringing it back with 3D. Has there ever been any thought put forward to continuing the story and doing The Lion King 2 down the road?
There's 2, and there's 1.5, which is awesome.
Okay, 3 and 4.
We've really thought about it. I'm not quite sure what the story is. There were a couple of sequels done a few years ago. So if the right story came along, yeah, it's great stuff to revisit, and when you see the success of movies like Toy Story 3, usually sequels go down in quality, and that one actually went up in quality. And so there's an opportunity and a really cool story that might be really fun to do.
You'd have to get another voice for young Simba again.
Yeah.
Jonathan Taylor Thomas sound like these days.
Probably like me, I don't know.
How did you come up with the concept of Lion King 1.5? I love the perspective that it offers, and the kind of behind the scenes, but a movie in itself.
Yeah, I was trying to play off of, that movie's all about Pumbaa and Timon, and trying to do a movie that's parallel to the actual movie itself, and do a kind of Mystery Science Theater version of Lion King that played off of their humor. So that was the bigger overarching idea of that movie, and I think it works really well. It just makes it more of a comedy and more lighthearted, and gives you that idea of, it's almost like Wicked, like you're seeing the story behind the story. And I think people enjoy it for that.
And that just happened? Somebody was asleep one night, woke up and said, hey, or did you always have that kind of in the back?
Well, the second Lion King movie was very serious and very much like the original, very profound and all that stuff. And I think we were worried about getting too self-serious, and the idea of doing a movie that was a parallel story with Pumbaa and Timon as the stars, I think was something everybody gravitated to pretty early, because it just leavened it, and it made it lighter, and gave you another perspective on the beloved story that you can tell. So
I really enjoyed it.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I'm glad. Someday we'll do another one.
So Timon and Pumbaa, they live by Hakuna Matata. Is there anything that you could say that you took away from the movie that has maybe changed you, or a way that you live by?
Wow, what a great question. No, let's talk specifically about Hakuna Matata, because that was a phrase we picked up on a field trip to Africa before the movie came out. And we were looking for a song, and the model song was Que Sera Sera, that Doris Day song. And so we thought, we have to go out in the jungle, and Pumbaa and Timon will sing a song like Que Sera Sera, whatever will be, will be. And then one of the directors said, well, let's use Hakuna Matata, because that's this native term for no worries. It means no worries. And nobody could pronounce it, and we thought, who's ever going to understand this? And
That's a big hit.
It became a huge hit, yeah. So in terms of learning things from the movie, wow. I'm always humbled by the artistic achievement of these movies, because it's certainly not my movie or Niketa's movie. It's both of our movies, and also 600 other people. And unlike any other art form, it is a collaborative art form. And I suppose it's very much like the opera, or like symphonic music, where you have 120 players having to play the same song together. And every once in a while, if you're lucky, once in your career, you'll get this perfect storm of people and talents and story and actresses and people that come together that can transcend just one of us. There's that great Ray Kroc quote, the guy that founded McDonald's. It's something to the effect of, all of us is better than one of us. So it's the idea that we're all can do better work than any of us can do individually. And that's the big thing I took away from Lion King.
The video that we watched earlier, like the people playing, that's really how, the directors were great with kids. Like, it was just fun to go to work, and
they would throw you around and beat you up.
Yeah, like they would come in and say, okay, this scene is about this, and do it like 5 different ways. And I remember Jonathan, well, whatever. The screaming scene, like he had to get his energy into it, so he went behind his chair. He went behind his chair, and he was like doing the, no! no! And then we go back behind his chair and grab him and go, no! And then there was one time where I forgot how to scream because I was asked to scream, so I forgot how to scream. And so there's a part that I cringe every time I see the movie where I'm like, ah! And, I'm like, and then when I left the session, I was like, oh, I screamed like, ah! Like, hi! And I was so mad. And like, that's my own little thing. I cringe every time that moment comes when she's going down the thing. And she's like, ah!
I'll be looking for that.
Yeah. So when you watch it tomorrow, when she's going down in the elephant graveyard, she doesn't do a normal like roller coaster scream. She's like, ah! But other than that, it was a wonderful experience.
But it's you.
You should be saying
I mean, oh yes.
When I go down.
I went down the elephant graveyard.
How old were you when you?
I was 12 when we recorded, and I was 14 when it came out. And now I'm 30. Yeah.
No, I remember watching it. I think I saw it more than once when it was in the theaters. But I remember that opening sequence, and then, you know, at the end where it's just like boom, and the Lion King, and you know, the first time just being like, how did you feel the first time you saw that opening sequence all put together? And it still gives me goosebumps.
How did you feel?
I remember in the movie theater, like not the premiere, but my mom loves to just go to a random movie theater and like look at the audience and see how they're reacting to it. But I remember when previews, remember they used to play the whole beginning sequence just in previews before the movie came out? People were like clapping like they were at the theater just for that opening sequence, and I was like, I feel pretty proud to be a part of it. Yeah, it's a beautiful movie to watch, to listen to, and to gain from the storyline.
Yeah, that opening was big. It was funny because we set it out probably 6 months or more before the movie was out.
People were clapping.
And what they didn't know was the rest of the movie was kind of in shambles story-wise. And so people would say, wow, that's amazing. Is the rest of the movie that good? And we would say, yeah. And it wasn't. It was like horrible. And so it kind of made us terrified. And we went back and really tried to elevate the rest of the movie. It was good, but there were a lot of story bumps in the second act that we were trying to work out because it's a little bit of a love story between you and Simba. And then there's the Puma Timon kind of comedy hour, and Simba's main story, which is taking his place back in walking in his father's footsteps. We're juggling all these story elements in it, and it was not until the last 6 months where the whole story kind of started to come together. So what Circle of Life did was give us a way to send a piece of the movie out there and say, you know, this is what the movie is, and then we were scrambling behind the scenes to make sure the movie was kind of like that. So it's terrifying. What else? Okay, then. Well, thank you. No. We can talk about the music a little bit. Elton had never written a musical before, and you would not know it. Tim Rice, of course, had written Evita and a number of other musicals. Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat with Andrew Lloyd Webber. So he was really the dramatist that came in and really worked on the lyrics really hard with us. And poor Tim, we made him rewrite lyrics like Can You Feel the Love Tonight probably 20 times because the story would change slightly. And Elton was great, though. He wrote several songs that ended up on the floor. He would send us these great demos that he would basically do on his piano in his living room in his pajamas, and then send us a cassette tape, and then we would send that to Hans Zimmer, who would do this amazing kind of overlay of African music. He brought in Lebo M, who is the guy that does that thing at the beginning of the movie.
Lovely.
Thank you so much. Okay, now it's your turn. No. Lebo was interesting. He was from South Africa, and he was in Los Angeles, and he was working for a valet car parking service at the time and looking for singing jobs. So we got him off of his valet job to come into the studio, and we said, we need this cry in the wilderness at the beginning of the movie, and it's kind of a John the Baptist thing. And he said, okay, let me think about it. And he came back. We were all eating Chinese food. And he came back, and in about 2 takes, he did what you hear in the movie, and it's this really iconic thing now. And even on Broadway, when you hear that,
He was in the Broadway, the
sure was.
original one, wasn't he?
He sure was
I
on
saw it
Broadway.
in New York.
And what does it mean? Like, he's saying something, right? Or is it just kind of a cry?
No, it means something. It's interesting because that and the Ingwiamas, the kind of chanting underneath it, a lot of that goes back to South Africa and freedom songs from Mandela in that apartheid era. In fact, the opening of the second act of Lion King on Broadway is a song called One by One.
I love that song.
Love that song.
One by one.
Exactly.
I don't know what they say.
It's exactly it. And it's a protest song. It's about freedom and that kind of thing. And so in the Swahili lyrics or whatever he was singing, those messages are in there. We like that because it gives a sense of, freeing yourself and kind of Simba's story and whatever. So they meant something.
It seems to transcend language because, just as she was saying, you see it, and I grew up kind of on Lion King in a way. I'm the same age as you, so seeing it and growing up with it like that, and you look at it, and I don't know what he's saying. I've never known, even to this day, and you start feeling this uprising, I'm an animal. Right. Or something. And it's the circle of life, or something. So it's amazing.
It's like a big gospel tent,
I'm not the only one.
Funny, that song actually won. I was telling someone earlier, won my son when he was 3 months old in his first Halloween, and we dressed him as a lion, and we were in a Halloween costume contest, and my husband took him up on stage and hoisted him up, and that's how we won. So thank you.
Did you see?
Getting royalties on that.
A couple months ago when Obama was at the Washington Press Corps dinner where they roast everybody, and that was what Donald Trump was saying, he wasn't born in America and all that stuff. And he said, I have proof I was born here because I have my birth video, and let's take a look now. And he showed the opening of Lion King. So I was on the phone calling Bob Iger.
It's very funny.
It was very, very funny.
What parent hasn't lifted up their baby and gone,
Right.
It's one of those pop culture things that's become a part of.
Sticking with the theme of children, as most of us are moms in this room, having healthy movies and shows for our children to watch is extremely important to us, and things that stick with the child theme, so you can, maybe walk in the kitchen and cook and don't have to worry about what your kids are watching. How important is that to you as a producer?
Well, for me personally, really important because that's kind of where my sensibilities lie, and the kind of I'll never make an R-rated movie. Not that I don't appreciate them or like them sometimes, but I really enjoy making family movies. We're really careful about what we put in them too. I think with Lion King, we were very conscious of the violence and the fights at the end, and ended up really fine-tuning that. And we animated also the scene of Mufasa's death, and Simba comes up. We did that. Mark Hen did that about 4 times. Because we knew that we were trotting on some very sacred ground and it had to be appropriate. So I love that, and I feel like, I love telling those stories. And they're old stories, it's old mythology. The idea of holding your son up, we stole from Roots and Kunta Kinte, holding up the sun. And so we draw on a lot of mythology and a lot of cultures and a lot of visual symbols that are out there in the world. And have, without handcuffing us creatively, have a sense of responsibility for who our audience is. And we're all dads and moms, and the people who work on these movies have families, and we make them for us and our families. So we don't want to sanitize them. We never want to talk down to the audience, because the truth is the kids are way beyond us and are upwardly aspirational.
Right.
So you can do a movie like this that has some pretty adult themes in it, and kids are right there with you.
And the backdrop is Africa, but it transcends, like she was saying, throughout the cultures, which was a cool thing to introduce some culture, but it wasn't jarring, or it was inviting, and all the cultures were kind of sharing in the experience. So that was cool too.
Exactly. Yes.
Certainly with the success of Toy Story and the other Pixar Disney movies and stuff like that, we're seeing a lot more of the digital animation rather than the drawings and stuff that we see in Lion King. Are there any movements to go back to some of these more drawn cartoons as well? I do too. I love Toy Story all day long. However, the beauty that's in the drawn cartoons, the princesses and the Lion King and such, it's lost somehow.
It's weird.
Yeah, I'm so glad
Princess Frog was,
Princess the Frog is
I'm
very,
so glad that was drawn.
it's beautiful because of that. And the Winnie the Pooh movie that just came out, there's a when you sit down with a pen and paper and do a handwritten letter, it has a sense of emotion and humanity to it that an email doesn't have. And I think that's the same kind of feeling that a hand-drawn film has. You're seeing the hand of the artist, and there's idiosyncrasies and mistakes in that, and a lot of humanity in that drawing. And so it won't go away. I mean, for a number of reasons. I don't think people go to see movies for a technique. You know, you don't say, well, let's go, I'm going to put $15 down because I go see this particular CG. We don't do that. We want to be entertained. And I also think, there's room for, in the art world, we have photography and oil paintings and watercolors, and we have all these mediums, and I think animation is the same way. And the biggest fan of hand-drawn animation is John Lasseter, who forged the way for computer animation. And if he were sitting here, he would say, we're going to do that. And I'm working on a puppet movie right now with Tim Burton, and that's all like Nightmare Before Christmas puppets. And that's a legitimate way to tell a story. So that's the fun of animation. It's not the technique, it's the story. What else?
I think we might have time, actually, if you don't mind, taking a quick picture with the whole group.
Yes, I thought you were going to say it for a musical number.
Just